Hello, it's Jerry from World Boat Skiff, and if you'd like to purchase the plans to build this boat, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's a downloadable PDF and it's in standard metric. Let me get you up to speed on where we're at right now. So after we took this boat off the jig and flipped it over, I got going on the outside gunnels, and I got that stock by ripping a piece of, this was a deck board that is 1 inch thick by 5.5 inches wide, and I was able to rip that with my circular saw with a guide on it and get my ribs in my inside and outside gunnel. So I fully epoxied this to the outside and put some stainless screws where needed to hold it as it was curing, with that and some clamps. After I had the outside gunnels on, I went ahead and made these ribs up. These have a 30-degree bevel on the bottom, and I epoxied those on with this Thixo 2-part epoxy. To hold that bottom in place, I put a temporary 4-penny nail, just tack that in at a diagonal, put a clamp on the top, and put a stainless screw 1 inch from the outside in, wherever they weren't pulled in nicely. After I got the ribs installed, I needed a block on the stern and the bow that was going to accept the ends of this inside gunnel, and I'll show you those right now. So here's a top view of that block I was talking about. This is the stern right here. This is my outside gunnel. This has a compound cut on it that I made with the miter saw, and I dry fitted this in place and put a clamp on there and drilled a 1/4 inch hole right through the middle of it. That way I was able to epoxy it up, and then I just put my bolt right in there and put a nut on there, and that held it in so it didn't move around as it was curing. Now that I have that installed, that's gonna be, I'm gonna continue that hole from the outside, and that's gonna bolt all the way through. I'll show you the other piece where I have a countersink for the nut, and then that'll get filled in. So here we are up at the bow. First thing I did to make this breast hook was I took a piece of cardboard stock and butted it up against the bow stem and traced the inside. That gave me a pattern that I was able to put on a piece of plywood, and I know this angle on the sides and at the bow, and then I was able to I made 2 of these and laminated those together. One sits flush with the outside of the sides, and this second one lays 3/4 above the sides. And I also added a 3rd layer that is about 4 inches wide, goes right across here, just to give this some more thickness here so that my in-wheel ties in. Once I had this dry fitted in place, I put a little hot glue to temporarily hold that in place, and then I was able to fit these inside blocks, which this dimension projects out 1 inch, and this projects out 3/4. So what I'm trying to do is bring that in-wheel back in a little tighter. And the reason for that is this in-wheel sits 90 degrees to the side, so it's actually projecting up higher than the outside of the boat. So this is up higher to give this room to tie into. This little corner's gonna sand off. This is gonna all look nice once it's done. All gonna sand out nice. Once I had that dry fitted, I did the same method as before. I clamped this in place, drilled a hole through it, then went ahead and epoxied it, put the bolt through there, that held that in place, these two blocks. Then I was able to, after these cured, I was then able to epoxy this breast hook in place, and these little blocks acted as stops to keep it from shifting, falling down. So after the breast hook was installed and my blocks, then I could get going on these inwales. And first I took a scrap piece of lumber and fitted it up to this block to get this compound cut that I need. And I made one for the starboard and one for the port here. And bolt, I fit this in, bolt this through with this clamped in place, and I'll show you the stern. I run that long and I'll show you how I make that cut nice. Alright, let me show you how I got this in-whale cut to length. Alright, so I have it clamped all the way. It's attached with that one bolt at the bow, and this is already cut now, but this was projecting out another foot past that. And so just picture that. I just took a stick, just could be any dimension, could be a tape measure, and I just put it into this corner where I wanted that to end. And I just put a pencil mark at the end of this stick, and this was projecting long, and I just went back to this, put this back at that mark, and marked that, and I knew that was going to be that inside dimension, and I already had a piece fitted, so I knew this angle beforehand, and I just put that on top of the piece, mark that angle on that top, and going down there, and I just took a pole saw and just cut that in place. And that was a little tight. And then I just took my rotary sander or a belt sander and just fitted that till I got it to fit in just like I wanted it. Now the other side's already drilled. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Clamp these in place. Make a countersink. Drill a 1/4-inch hole. Do another countersink on the outside for the bolt head. Then these will be installed. Also notice when I did this outside gunnel, I just left that long. And I'll come back soon and give a flush cut on that. Alright, I already have a hole through this from where I glued it, the block on it. Just going to continue that through. This is for my countersink. This is a little homemade jig I put on there for a stop. Not ideal, but works. This is the bolt I'm using. Need to put a countersink on the outside here. just temporarily hold that on there. Just gonna go in the center of this. That's good. All right, that's about as close as I want to take it with that power planer. I'll finish it up with the orbital grinder. Just gonna bring this down flush, about at the same angle. So here's what that inside gunnel looks like, installed. Next thing we do is work on the seats.